والسلام على سيدنا وحبيبنا وقائدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اهتدى بهديه إلى يوم الدين. كل عام وأنتم بخير ورمضان كريم, Ramadan Mubarak for everybody. It's been a year since we have that gathering here. As you can see, during that year, some of us have come often, some of us didn't come so often. Some may have continued to do Qiyamul Layl or other sort of worship. Some did occasionally, some didn't. And that's natural, right? It's natural that you can't just go sprint all the time. There will be times that is better than others. But myself included, first of all, we sort of tend to slow down and slow down way too much. Slow down is okay, but completely is not exactly the way it's supposed to be. And what we call this, what we actually, how do we describe that? Sort of less effort, less importance. We call this ghafla or heedlessness. So it is a major thing that we wanted to talk about for hopefully the next few days or so. And we'll start with simple stuff first. So we want to know what the word ghafla means in Arabic. It means السهي عن الشيء وتركه. Basically, you forget about something and you leave it, right? But somebody can say, what? That's forgetfulness, right? That's a nisyan, right? What is nisyan? Nisyan is forgetfulness. And the word insan, because we all are insan, it includes anasa, which is clear, obvious, you can see, and also from nasa, forget. The difference between nisyan and ghafla is nisyan is without intention. You have no intention of forgetting something, but you just skip your mind. You know, I go to the car and I leave my keys behind. I had no intention to drive my car without the key. It just slipped my mind, right? But the ghafla is the same thing, is forgetting something, but because you don't care for it so much. Or with an intention, with an actual intention. And that's a huge difference between the two, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He talks about the non-believer, He described them with ghafla, right? But when He talks about the righteous people, He described them with forgetfulness, with nisyan, okay? Take an example so we can actually see how eloquent the Quran is describing this. So one example in Surah Yusuf, when the sons of Yaqub alayhi salam decided to take Yusuf and throw him in the well, they went to Yaqub and asked him to do that, right? And his answer was that I'm afraid on him, right? You're not gonna take good care of him. So what he said, وَأَخَافُ أَنْ يَأْكُلَهُ الذِّئْبُ وَأَنْتُمْ عَنْهُ غَافِلُونَ, right? They know that Yusuf is there, and he is not actually talking about bad intention. He's not talking about their bad intention. He's talking about them, they just don't care for him, right? He knows that. They really don't care for him. So what they're gonna do is just, they're gonna leave him there and he will be in danger, right? Even though they know he's there, but they don't really care that much, right? So it's a forgetfulness, but with an intention and with less caring or no caring whatsoever, right? The other example for nisyan, so the meaning hopefully will be clear, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about Adam alayhi salam. Adam is a prophet, right? So the prophet cares. They are ma'sumin from something like ghafla, right? So he said in Surah Taha, وَلَقَدْ عَهِدْنَا إِلَىٰ آدَمَ فَنَسِيَ وَلَمْ نَجِدْ لَهُ عَزْمًا. Right? We have given a covenant to Adam, but he forgot. Adam forgot, it really slipped his mind. Somebody convinced him otherwise, and he just forgot the order, right? So it's a huge difference between the two. The word ghafla and its relatives, ghafilun, ghafilat, etc., came in the Quran 35 times. The vast majority of those in a bad way, describing it as bad, except in only two occasions. One was in Surah An-Nur, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَرْمُونَ الْمُحْصَنَاتِ الْغَافِلَاتِ. He described those who accuse the Muslim righteous women who are not aware of what those people talking. And the other one is in Surah Al-Qasas when he talks about Musa alayhi salam, وَدَخَلَ الْمَدِينَةَ عَلَى حِينِ غَفْلَةٍ مِّنْ أَهْلِهَا. And he entered the city على حين غفلة, without noticing, right? And حين غفلة here, it describes one of two things. Either he entered the city in the time where everybody is sleeping, like in the middle of the afternoon. We all in Egypt do that, right? So nobody is really aware of him coming. Or على حين غفلة, they forgot about Musa himself, right? The other thing that to actually complete the meaning of ghafla is the types of ghafla. There is really two types of ghafla. Either a complete heedlessness or a partial or a temporary heedlessness. And those are very, very important to distinguish between these two. A complete ghafla is like the non-believer. These people, even though they probably in their heart know that there is a day of judgment, that there is a creator, they ignore it because they don't care for it. They just completely ignore it. And then they forget it. They forget it because intentionally they ignore that, right? Take an ayah from the Quran to describe this. In Surah Al-A'raf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَقَدْ ذَرَأْنَا لِجَهَنَّمَ كَثِيرًا مِنَ الْجِنِّ وَالْإِنسِ لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا وَلَهُمْ أَعْيُنٌ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ بِهَا وَلَهُمْ آذَانٌ لَا يَسْمَعُونَ بِهَا أُولَئِكَ كَالْأَنْعَامِ بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلُّ أُولَئِكَ هُمْ الْغَافِلُونَ. Right? So we have made for Jahannam a lot of jinn and human, right? They have hearts they don't comprehend with. Indeed, they do have eyes, but they can't see with it. They do see, right? But they chose to ignore, right? They only see what they want to see. وَلَهُمْ آذَانٌ لَا يَسْمَعُونَ بِهَا. And they have ears, but they cannot actually truly hear for it. It's like somebody who would hear only what they like, right? And after that, they are deaf. They are exactly like the cattle, but even they are worse, because the cattle don't understand, but these people would understand and chose to ignore. أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْغَافِلُونَ. Right? So this is the type of complete ghafla. They are in total denial. They are in total heedlessness, right? The temporary one or a partial one, that happened to the believer, that happened to the mu'mineen. It happened to the righteous one, even the righteous one, even to the muttaqeen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا إِذَا مَسَّهُمْ طَائِفٌ مِّنَ الشَّيْطَانِ تَذَكَّرُوا فَإِذَا هُمْ مُبْصِرُونَ. Those who are righteous, who are muttaqeen, right? If they have طائف من الشيطان, the shaitan came and just distracted them a little bit, they would remember. They may forget for a while, right? And they don't forget because they don't know or it passes. It's just because it overcome them because of some weakness, right? But then they would remember. They would remember that, right? And subhanallah, you see in the same surah, Surah Al-A'raf, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking to the Prophet about the same thing, he say what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, وَإِمَّا يَنْزَغَنَّكَ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ نَزْغٌ. It's not remember, because he never forget. He doesn't have that ghafla at all. He's ma'soom, right? He's protected from Allah with that. فَاسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ, right? فَاسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ. He already knows that, right? And even if he forgets something, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never described that. He says in Surah Al-An'am, وَإِمَّا يُنْسِيَنَّكَ الشَّيْطَانُ فَلَا تَقْعُدْ بَعْدَ الذِّكْرَى مَعَ الْقَوْمِ الظَّالِمِينَ. Right? So he described it by forgetfulness. It's just things that would pass any human being, right? So there's a huge difference between the two. We all are going to be subject to that. The issue is we just got to remember. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about al-muttaqeen in the ayat that we all know in Surah Ali Imran. وَسَارِعُوا إِلَى مَغْفِرَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ وَجَنَّةٍ عَرْضُهَا السَّمَاوَاتُ وَالْأَرْضُ أُعِدَّتْ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. It has to the forgiveness from Allah and to heaven, right? And then he described in the second ayah, in the ayah after that, the character of those muttaqeen. The ayah after that, amazingly enough, what it says وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا فَعَلُوا فَاحِشَةً أَوْ ظَلَمُوا أَنفُسَهُم. Those are the righteous one. He's not talking about mu'mineen, he's talking about muttaqeen, right? He's describing the righteous one, the better part of the believer. Would they have fahisha? Yeah, they can. And he chooses the word iza, not inna, right? In is always comes with it out. They are both harf shart in Arabic, right? It's a conditional right? But the condition with iza means that it's going to happen. No doubt, it's going to happen. إذا السماء كورت, إذا when he talks about the day of judgment, it's going to happen. So he uses إذا. But in, right, is use it for doubt, things that may or may not happen, right? So he chose the word إذا. So we know that we're going to be subject to those problems. The problem is not falling. The problem is getting up after falling. The problem is not forgetting. The problem is remembrance, right? And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا ذِكْرَى لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَذَكِّرْ فَإِنَّ الذِّكْرَى تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Reminders, right? Yeah. جعلنا الله وإياكم من الذاكرين الشاكرين ووقانا من غفلة القلب والروح والجسد. آمين يا رب العالمين. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم سلمنا لرمضان وسلمه لنا وتسلمه منا متقبلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين واجعلنا من عتقائك من النار في هذا الشهر الكريم. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.